Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the invitation. MEP and Pilar made a reference that we have some UK guests. I'm honored to be called a UK guest, having been a commission official, a Swede, and on top of it now speaking in Brussels. But I do think it encapsulates a little bit what I want to tell about Vodafone and the type of company that Vodafone is and will continue to be. I think we all agree here, and that's the starting point for our conversation, that the free flow of data across Europe and actually throughout the world is essential for all businesses. And the reality is that this is only going to grow. What we've seen so far is the fact that services and therefore data is being incorporated in enabling trade in a manner that we have never seen before. I mean, would you imagine selling architecture services today without emailing or sending digitally the sketches of the housing or the construction project to another country? So what we're not talking about is something ultimately unique for Europe. And I'm going to limit myself to European perspective for the purposes of this discussion. Now, Vodafone, of course, is what MEP Pilar referred to, a global company, but we were born out of Europe with a birthplace called the United Kingdom. We operate in 12 EU markets. We partner with operators in another 15 EU markets, and we have 120 million European customers. I should also say up front that we're a very staunch defender and supporter of the European Commission's vision for a digital single market. And we're investing very heavily in going from words to action when it comes to the gigabit targets that the EU as a whole has set for itself. Just to give you an example, over the past 4 years, Vodafone has invested over 45 billion euros in Europe. Now, we are, to some extent, one of the few European digital champions. And therefore, we take all the issues that relates to Europe's digital future with great care, as well as with the responsibility. Just to give you a sense how important data is for us as a European digital champion at this point. During the course of this lunch, which is 1.5 hours, we estimate that 400 terabytes of data will have passed over our network. That's roughly to 200,000 hours of continuous standard video playback, or 6,800,000 hours of continuous music, just during this seminar. And now I'm only talking about customers. When we bring business into this, and when we talk about how the broader development of things, and including not humans only communicating, but actually stuff communicating to each other, I'm of course referring to the Internet of Things. Now, Vodafone is the #1 world leader actually on the Internet of Things. We have 59 million objects connected around the globe, many of which are in Europe. And these objects, of course, talk to each other on a continuous basis, exchanging data across geographical boundaries. They are not territorial in nature. Therefore, as we understand the data economy, we should not only start from the basis of us humans having smartphones and talking to each other. We have to understand that in the digital economy, everything will be connected and stuff moves around, just as humans do. Therefore, as we see it, and I'll just give you a few examples on how we have worked with different sectors, what we're playing with here is ultimately the functioning of our economy, which will be dependent on the free flow of data across territories. And it will not only be in the traditional telco digital space, it will be for pretty much every sector of the economy. Let me give you a highlight, of course, of cars, which is an area where Vodafone is the predominant provider of connected cars in Europe at this point. Another one is health, which MEP Pilar referred to, which is going to be incredibly important. And we work with a number of companies to provide global SIM cards into various health solutions, including which I was referred to, is a great case study of us working with something called exobionics, which basically makes exoskeletons for people who have stroke or spinal cord injuries. That's incorporated with the global SIM. Now, linked to that is, of course, what was also referred to as research. As we know, we are faced with a number of environmental challenges across Europe. One of the areas is the depletion of a number of our natural species. One of such are sea mammals, including seals. What we're working on is having solutions of SIMs trying to track the population of seals across Europe. Again, seals are not particularly prone to stay along the coast of Sweden or Finland, or perhaps the UK coast and crossing over to Ireland. They are quite mobile. And therefore, in that world, we have to understand that as we collect that data, it will not respect government-determined territorial boundaries. As more digital data is shared in the future, the value of the economy and society will only increase. And this is one of the points that the Commission has very, very good in trying to encapsulate and assess what are we playing with here. So today, EU's data economy is valued by the Commission at 300 billion euros. And by 2020, which is basically across the, around the corner, it will be at the level of 739 billion euros. So it's rapidly increasing. And for that reason, Vodafone, along with a number of industry representatives, has also been very supportive of the Commission's proposal on free flow of data. Now, taking all of that into the consideration, the way that our economies and our societies are changing, it is obvious that the services that we and other businesses offered could be and probably would be affected by disturbed data flows, and quite significantly. It's also clear that it's not going to be a damage only to telco or only to digital. It's going to be across our entire economy. European car manufacturer, technology providers, SMEs who benefit from our services will be equally affected by the disturbance of data flows. So the conclusion is very clear for us. We have to find a way of making sure that we support the free flow of data across territorial boundaries. And we have to do so in a manner that respects not only the privacy but the security and all the other concerns that are legitimately placed upon companies on how we handle the data. Now, as the UK exits the EU, that will pose particular problems. I think to some extent some of the points that were raised, there's no point in repeating them, but let me just highlight from Vodafone's perspective, there's not really two options out there, there's one option. And for us, we have been very clear to the UK government that we are a strong advocate for the recognition of adequacy. We want data to be protected, secure, and valuable in the UK as in the EU. And we need to be able to process it in the UK as in other EU member states. And just to be very clear, we don't have the server hosts for our customer data, of UK customer data, in the United Kingdom. So the mere fact if it was a territorial boundary, that would imply a capital investment to try to address the artificial disturbance of the flows that we currently have. On a positive note, I must say we have not encountered any question marks from behalf of the UK government when we raised the need for adequacy and the need for a proper solution not to disturb the current level of data flow or even to look into the future. On the contrary, we have found quite a lot of sympathy for our concerns and a high priority placed on this issue. So that's the good news. The bad news is that we haven't started the negotiation, and we actually don't have a clear path on trying to nail down exactly how we're going to settle these very important issues. From our point of view, we're quite worried about the deadline. Therefore, we have also been equally clear that we wanted this to be built into the transitional arrangement, so there is no cliff edge with respect to the data flows that already exist between the UK and EU. And let me be very clear about one thing. And you were, MEP Dalton, you were quite diplomatic in how you put this. You said UK has a different starting point from the United States. UK has a fundamentally different starting point from the United States. It's already part of the European Union. And therefore, it already works on the basis of EU law. Therefore, the question that we ask ourselves from Vodafone, if the UK cannot have adequacy, who can? And from that point of view, our starting point must be, should the UK properly incorporate GDPR in UK law, which is what we expect and hope, then absolutely there shouldn't be a problem for the UK to have adequacy, because ultimately our adequacy system cannot be built around small states in Caribbean markets or in South America. It has to be built where it makes the most sense from an economic point of view, and that will certainly be both from the UK side and the EU side between those two economic powerhouses. Thank you very much.